Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. I'm your host, Adam Hartel, and we have got a great stream in store for us today. If you managed to see even part of the reel that we just showed before we went live, that was the Gnomon 2021 student reel. Gnomon is a 3D art school. We're actually a highly specialized 3D art school in Hollywood, California. We're training artists for careers in games, film, visual effects, animation. So all of that you saw in the reel is all student work from our school, and I can't get enough of it. The 2021 reel's been out for a couple weeks now, and I just get pumped every time I see it. So I hope that you managed to enjoy it. If not, you got to go back on the VOD later and check it out. So today we've got a great stream in store. I'm going to be introducing our guest in a moment, but before I do, I just want to mention that if you are in need of closed captioning on the stream, that's going to be available on our YouTube stream, both live on that platform and on VOD later. So be sure to head over there if you're in need of that. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest. So Luis Carrasco, not only is he an alumni of Gnomon, but he is senior concept artist at Terraform Studios. Luis is a character and creature design specialist who worked on many acclaimed titles, including Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Jurassic World, and Ready Player One. As a designer, Luis collaborates with art directors on visual development across projects, and he provides concept art to communicate ideas for the design and look of a project for directorial approval. Luis has taught design at many institutions, including the Gnomon School of Visual Effects and the Academy of Art University. So without any further ado, I want to say, Luis, welcome to the stream.
Hey, thanks for
Hello,
having me.
sir. How are you today?
Pretty good. How are yourself?
I'm doing okay. I'm happy to have you on the stream. Looking forward to what you got in store for us today. Yeah, just by way of introduction, if you didn't read the event stream, if you're just kind of finding your way into what's going on right now, we're going to be spending our time today taking a look at some of the workflow that you use, Luis. And, you know, this is going to be, you're going to see some stuff being done in 3D, but this is going to be very 2D artist friendly. So if you are just getting started in 3D, if you're dabbling in things like ZBrush and so forth, but also you just love drawing characters and creatures, I think this is going to be a great stream for you. And of course, if you're already experienced, you're probably going to see some things that are very inspiring and helpful as well. So with that, I just want to say, Luis, the mic is yours, sir. I'm going to jump in the sidecar and go ahead and take us out.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. Everyone watching, thanks for watching. So pretty much what I'm going to be showing you is a process I've been kind of working on for a long time, because I've always liked to draw, but I've never, I guess, had the patience to do like a full drawing. So it's always, because I love ZBrush so much. And one thing I learned at my time at Industrial Light and Magic, for instance, is it's really important to see a design in multiple views. And sometimes it's there's a request for things to be illustrated or just like different perspectives, so it could be viewed in certain contexts. So yeah, what I'm going to do is pretty much show you how I approach a design after I've done my research, stuff like that, how I start sketching and bringing it into ZBrush so I can start that whole process.
Cool.
So usually I start in Photoshop. So I did this doodle yesterday, just like a little creature. So I would have pulled reference, done all of my research. And I like to keep it pretty loose. Like you can tell, there's not like a whole lot of information here. It's just enough information to kind of get started. If you've seen my Gnome tutorial, I kind of go over that process where I kind of create like a blueprint for myself. Actually, maybe I like the other version. Okay, cool. Just so I have an idea of what the primary forms and the secondary forms are. Primary being like the big shapes here, and the things that I'm going to have to make. Obviously, so I won't draw in all the legs or get too detailed with that, because I can do that later. And also, since it's going to be pretty much a sketch, I don't really need to add that information. So those are the primary forms, and then secondary would be, you know, like these kind of protruding, like vines or veins or whatever they're going to be. And then, the eyes and stuff like that. And then tertiary is going to be like the fine detail, but we can either do that in Photoshop after we've done the sculpt, or we could just do it in 3D. So what I'm going to do now is just focus on building this guy really quick in ZBrush. So let me turn this off.
And if you're on the stream, guys, and you don't even, maybe ZBrush is entirely new to you, this is a really cool software package that it's the industry standard. It's what most studios in the industry are using. It basically lets you sculpt digitally on 3D digital clay.
Good old ZBrush. I know Blender's a thing now too.
Sure.
I love Blender. And I'll probably show a little Blender stuff too if we have time.
Cool.
So what I'm going to do is go to the Draw menu, and you'll see there's a bunch of options right here for a camera projection. So I'm just going to choose left and right because I did a profile view. I'll hit import and just grab my doodle, and it'll be here in the background.
I love that you can do that in ZBrush.
I love it too.
Yeah.
Alternative is you can go up here to the top right and just lower the translucency or transparency of the actual UI. So you could just do that. I kind of prefer just to do it this way just because I've always done it this way. Definitely make sure you turn perspective off. It's on by default, but you want to turn it off so that way you get an accurate sculpt. Because you'll be sculpting a perspective with a camera lens, and it can distort what it's going to look like. So I'm going to try to use the most basic tools for you all to see. So my most common tools are going to be the move tool, which I have mapped to my V key. So hotkeys are definitely a big plus of ZBrush, and they're easy to set up. And I use clay buildup to sculpt. And I try to keep my focal shift low. If you keep it high, it's going to give you a soft result instead of a hard-edged one. And I like to get those kind of happy mistakes or happy accidents, happy mistakes. And let's see. I use primitives a lot, but I'll go over that a little bit. It's because I sculpted in VR for a little bit just to try it out, and I kind of learned some methods that I thought were pretty useful, and I'll go over that. But in the beginning, again, I'm just going to be keeping it as simple as I can.
Yeah, this kind of approach using the primitive shapes is so much like drawing. Like when you just drew that circle in the beginning, I love it. Yeah.
So choosing primitive shapes, if you hit the B menu, there's the insert shapes, insert multi-mesh. So I'll just grab a basic shape. And you can do this however you want. If you just want to pull it out or sculpt it out, you can do that. But the more time you spend making your workflow efficient and the less buttons you have to click, the faster you're going to go. But sometimes you have a bunch of sketches to do.
And guys, if you're watching and you're sort of like, well, what did Luis just do? Today's not so much a tutorial as much as you to get a view of what it practically looks like to use this software and how creative 3D can be as a tool. ZBrush has an incredibly huge supportive community. And you can go to the Pixelogic website and find plenty of tutorials on how to get started. And you can get started pretty quickly. I mean, my 11-year-old daughter was putting primitives in and bending them around and making some really cool stuff. Like within the first hour, she tried ZBrush. So it's 100% possible, guys.
Yeah, ZBrush. I was showing friends some stuff yesterday, and it can seem a little complicated. But what's great about Pixelogic is their website has Z Classroom, and they have their tutorials are 2 minutes long, 5 minutes max maybe, and they cover these things in great detail. And it's pretty easy to pick up if you just follow those steps. And they have beginner, intermediate, and expert level. And that's absolutely what I used amongst other tutorials are available on Gnomon to learn it. I use an inflate brush too if my geometry is getting a little too thin. And I'll use the Dynamesh tool quite a bit in the beginning stages So that's in geometry tab. So what that does is that kind of changes the topology from like being all jaggedy and wonky to a little bit more manageable.
So, now, when you're designing like this, and you're when you sketch this creature, when you're working with it now, are you kind of are you just going stream of consciousness, or are you kind of imagining like where this creature lives and what it's supposed to be able to do?
That's a good question. So when I get a concept, I will read the brief and I'll have like whatever the function is supposed to be. So I'll make sure to hit like those points. So maybe this creature is supposed to be something that delivers eggs, right? It's what plants eggs for it to replicate, or maybe it creates these like other little minion creatures. So that's kind of the brief I gave myself.
That's cool.
And then looking at tons of reference, different types of eggs. Usually I won't be I usually won't focus too much about finding literal reference of like, oh, let me find like a spider egg. It'll be like, let me look up a flower that hasn't bloomed yet, because the bulb will have like an interesting thing. And that's kind of what's going on here, is it feels more like a flower bulb than anything. And functionality, I just roughed in a mouth, and it's just like, okay, maybe it kind of spits up these eggs on the ground, and it has these long legs, so it can pretty much land anywhere and do that. Okay,
that's where design is so fun. It's like free entertainment. You're just making up your own world and reality and everything that's possible in your design.
It definitely can be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard work too. Yeah, I know that.
Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate legs, and again, these are things you can just learn on ZBrush's website, because a lot of what I'm doing, they're inside of a bunch of different menus, and they take a while to get to. But you could always, what I did when I was learning is I would just kind of rewatch the video and try to look for the buttons people were using, and that helped me a lot. Watching the videos on Z Classroom is great, but that's like the technical way to do things, and sometimes artists come up with creative ways to accomplish a task, and that usually ends up being the thing that's like most comfortable to do. I'm just going to split this leg so I can put that off. And if you are going to pick up ZBrush and try to sculpt your creature, don't overwhelm yourself. Start off with a section and just make that a goal for the day. That's what I did for a long time before I started actually working on full characters like this at a time. You don't want to burn yourself out. It's definitely a lot to learn.
Yeah, I love how you're just like, it's like you're just using clay. I mean, you're laying in these real basic shapes, almost like you rolled up some clay, added it to your sculpt, and now you're bending it around. It really does become intuitive once you understand the basics.
I really focus on the primary form. When I first started sculpting, I would really focus on the details of everything, and I would end up staying kind of focused in one area, and then after like a few hours, I would kind of realize that I would zoom out and realize that I spent all this time on this one little area and ignored everything else, and I would kind of get discouraged, so I just wouldn't really work on it anymore, because I would just kind of feel exhausted every time I thought about it.
All right, guys, just want to let you know really quick, if you have questions for Luis while he's working, please feel free to type those into the chat. My colleague Xander is in the chat moderating, and he'll bring questions through to me. And I'll do my best to bring them up in context, but we'll also take a little bit of time towards the end to raise the questions that we've got. And if you have any questions about Gnomon, you can feel free to ask those in the chat as well. Xander is one of our admissions advisors, and he can answer any questions you have. If you're interested in portfolio coaching, want to know about, for example, individual classes where you can learn something like ZBrush, or even jumping into a full-time, degree program to learn digital production for entertainment. So yeah, just feel free, guys.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, happy to answer them. I don't really know what questions would come up just because I do this so much that I'm not sure if anything I'm doing is like really unique or special. So,
well, I think particularly, I know that ZBrush is a fairly recent addition to my arsenal as a designer, and working mostly with drawing and painting. I started really actively picking up ZBrush about a year ago, and even now, a year in, it's like you forget there's so much you take for granted as you are progressing in a thing. Whereas I'll talk to 2D artists and they'll be like, wow, you can like, what can you do with that? And are you able to do this? And it's like, yeah, you can totally make a full-on 3D creature, and it's like sculpting, and you could 3D print it or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think of a lot of the 3D, modeling suites, ZBrush definitely is, I think, the most accessible to people who like to draw right away, or at least digital sculpting is as a discipline.
Yeah. One thing I really prefer to do is paint and draw on top of my models. So I won't take them that far. I'll just take them. What I try to be conscious of is the things that I don't want to draw. So if there are things that are in a certain perspective, I just will sculpt it in so I don't have to draw it, and it could be like a guide for me too.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's see. One of our viewers has asked in the chat, can you save a custom workspace to better access different tools? Absolutely, you can. That's one of the things that ZBrush excels at, setting up a custom UI. But is there anything that you wanted to speak to that, Luis, as you're working?
No, yeah, it's great. I know some people have like I mean, you can see mine. Like I have all this right here is custom. Like I drag these from all the menus because whenever I work, I try to be mindful of the things that I use quite a bit, and I try to keep them readily available so that way I'm not stopping to go to these like menus. Like for instance, close holes. If you get to that menu, it's in the geometry tab, and you go to modify topology. And it's right here, which is like a needle in a haystack, pretty much.
Sure. Yeah, you have to know where it is.
Yeah, like mirroring, all that stuff. Yeah, and ZBrush does make it very easy to save it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the cool things, but there's so much learning resources online for ZBrush, especially in YouTube. Even as you're just getting started, even like the free version, like a ZBrush Core Mini, you can download that, start using it. If you come up on something that you don't know that you need to know, you can literally just go into YouTube and search ZBrush custom UI or custom layout, and you'll find like 10 videos easily where people are showing how to get that done. So it is something you can learn as you go if you need to, for sure.
Oh yeah, and you carry it with you. Even if there's a new version of ZBrush, you can still use it, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I love so you're using the clay buildup brush right now. I love that brush because it feels a lot like drawing. It's like you're literally just drawing the detail onto your sculpt.
Yeah, it does. And I do that quite a bit. Like I have another brush that I use to kind of like draw in things as a way to guide myself.
Yeah.
Oh, also a quick tip is for anyone doing this stuff, try to keep your mesh at a low resolution for as long as you can before going higher. The higher you go, the messier it'll get, and the harder it is to control all the shapes that are on the screen. So ignore that this is a little blurry, because if I were to divide it, it would smooth out and I could refine it further. You just want to stay as loose as possible for the beginning. And also, another huge tip, and this is something I learned from a really awesome, talented modeler that was at ILM, is be very conscious of the dark shadows that are appearing on the screen. So see this shadow right here? That's pretty dark compared to this one. That means if I were to light this, this would show up, and this side really wouldn't. It would kind of blend in with all of this. So be very conscious of how much you're carving in and the depth of your sculpting.
Yeah. And that's where like your advice about keeping a low res, like working loosely, that really does help you because it's harder to let things get out of control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's a lot like painting. You know, if you've ever painted, it's like you don't go into detail right away. You get those large shapes going. You get that more general read, solid structure in place first, and then you can go into detail. And it's the same kind of thing when you're sculpting for sure.
Yeah.
This guy's looking cool. The sort of flower bulb kind of, you know, and the sort of veiny things you've drawn up on the head, to me, almost has like a 1950s sci-fi vibe-ish to it, you know, but then the rest of the creature is feeling fairly modern. It's a cool look.
I hope so, just because I'm on ArtStation. I'm just like, man, there's like, I feel like there's so many tools now that I don't even know about. And ZBrush is updated. Every time I update ZBrush for work, I feel like there's a new version that comes out.
Oh, 100%. Especially this last year, they versioned up so many, like the 2021.6 that just dropped. There were some really cool features that came out with that. And you have to stay on top of it. Otherwise, like it'll leave you in the dust and you won't know what's out there.
Yeah, I just updated it and then I saw the announcement. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just not going to know those features. It's such a pain. It's such a pain to update, and you know, you have like work and stuff to do, so it's like, okay.
Sure. And guys, if you would like a little bit more of a primer, like how to get started in ZBrush, we've done a couple of streams already with Gnomon's Chief Creative Officer, Josh Herman, where he basically just gets us started in ZBrush and kind of explains the basic principles and what the different brushes do. So definitely go check out our playlist on YouTube or in Twitch and look up some of those streams with Josh. The very first one that we did is very, very basic. And it's enough to get you going. You know, it'll make you dangerous enough at least to be able to do something that looks cool. And then the rest is just moving forward.
Yeah, watching other artists work in ZBrush is super useful. Because sometimes I'll follow like tutorials and they're great, they get super technical, but then when you watch another artist work, it's like, oh, okay, there are some shortcuts I could take.
That's so true. Like for me, I feel like what's helped me learn quickly is, okay, go to the tutorial and learn the technical steps to do a thing, and then go watch other artists that are using that as a regular part of their workflow, and you'll discover how to practically apply that to your own work.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you're getting some cool shadow information going on here.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
These extra bits you're putting in.
Soon. Okay, so I will send this back.
And what did you just do there?
So I did. I used Transpose Master. So Transpose Master does, for anyone that doesn't know, is it's in the Z plugin menu. And what it sends the lowest resolution of your model to another scene, so that way you can modify it all as one piece in case you want to change the silhouette, work on everything at once, and then you can just go back and hit T-pose sub T, and it'll send everything right back.
All right, we got a few more questions that have come in while you're working here, Luis. Someone's wanting to know if ZBrush uses third-party scripts or plugins to help workflow, kind of like how Maya does. Are you familiar with that?
Is there like a specific thing? But I mean, if there's a specific thing, I could answer to that. But if you mean like a plugin just to toggle between both apps, there is. I use the Blender plugin. So I guess I'll just show you really quick.
That's Go B, right? Isn't that what they call it?
I guess so. I mean, I just typed in like Blender plugin.
Sure.
And for ZBrush or Go Z Blender. Yeah, after you set it up, you could just you just hit Go Z, or I guess
Gotcha.
Go Z all, and it'll send stuff to
It'll just send the whole thing over to Blender.
yeah.
That's geometry. That's great.
I've actually never used the all button. I've only used the Go Z button. Oh wait, I forgot to import. Haha, there we go. Okay, so we'll hit all.
Oh, that's great. I haven't used that yet, and I do a lot of stuff in Blender as well. That's great.
Well, it's deciding to act weird now, but yeah, and then you could just play with Eevee, place a light or something.
Yeah, you can so quickly get a cool lighting scenario.
Yeah. So let's see. So this guy's getting a little muddy. So what I like to do is to start to work on very specific shapes that are going to kind of realize the whole thing, because there's still like not much of a flow to this right now. So what I'll do is I'll check in with the sketch and see what I was going for. I think these could be a little smaller. But I always check back in with the sketch, and that's the whole reason of sketching before we go into ZBrush, is just to make sure I kind of stay loyal to that.
It's so easy to like, if you don't have something to anchor yourself to, you can get lost in like, well, maybe I can try this, maybe I can try that, and you can just tinker the whole time.
Exactly, yeah, and I definitely want to keep things fairly crisp, instead of getting so muddy like the top of this head is getting. So what I'm going to do is try to refine it a little bit.
The other thing that's cool about ZBrush is there's so many ways to do a thing. There's so many tools. It's not like there's only one way to accomplish X, Y, Z. It's more like just learning all the tools and deciding how you want to go about it as an artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, could have done all this in like so many different ways. How's your ZBrush experience been so far?
Really fun. So I got started by taking some individual classes at Gnomon. So I started out in Jared Kraszewski's class, just teaching making creatures in ZBrush.
Yeah, awesome stuff,
yeah, and it depends on your learning style. For me, I learned a little bit about ZBrush, enough to become dangerous in like online tutorials and stuff, Z Classroom, but then getting myself into a more academic environment where there were assignments required of me, it helped me progress really quickly. So I started out doing creature sculpting and 100% love it. But then also moved into some hard surface. So I'm working on a mech right now in ZBrush, and I didn't realize how capable ZBrush was at hard surface. There's so many cool things you can do.
It looks awesome. I'm definitely intimidated by the hard surface for sure.
It's like how do I describe it? It doesn't feel like classic hard surface modeling. It's more like ZBrush hard surface, which as soon as you get the principles down on some of the stuff that Paul Gabry teaches on his streams.
Yeah.
He does a really cool stream where he's currently building a sound wave from the Transformers. And
awesome.
Yeah, he's basically just teaching all his hard surface techniques. But, keeping really low poly and then using like insert mesh brushes and stuff to just like pop details and things like that in.
Yeah.
Super fast. But yeah, I'm loving it. So for me, it's a great tool sometimes to make a sculpt like fully realized, like fully detailed, and then like just, almost photorealistic. But the other thing I love ZBrush for is getting enough information and then bringing it into a 2D platform and painting and drawing on top of it.
Yeah. I've kind of found some methods to be super useful. I actually use the BPR render in ZBrush quite a bit more than like the Blender stuff. I just found you just get a lot of bang for your buck with it.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just recently spent more time digging into ZBrush's own rendering to be able to kick out, your different layers and your shadow information. And it's super, super robust. A lot of cool stuff you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive how quickly the creatures come together. Obviously, because you know what you wanted to do before you started sculpting. But even just in that initial read with the basic shapes, like the creature was there.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it can be really fast. It definitely takes, you definitely have to take the time to do the research to make sure you know what direction you're going to go in. Like this stuff, I probably wouldn't be noodling as much had I had like some reference up on my screen, like to sculpt. But I'm also just trying to have fun with it. I think it's okay to like try to sculpt from your imagination and just have fun with things, and then go to reference maybe after and see how you can bring it closer to reality.
Sure. Yeah, it's like you said earlier, happy accidents.
Happy accidents, absolutely.
Are you looking to make those eyes a little bit more like stalks at this point?
I don't know.
I saw you drag them out there, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
I'm like, oh, that might be a little weird. I'm just trying to make sure that I get this feeling the way I want it to feel, and all that exact thing. Also, make sure I have a cool silhouette, like in the top left.
Yeah, that's the other thing that Jared would talk about a lot in his class, is because you can always step backwards. It's really fun just to get in there with a big, huge move brush and just like drag things to their extreme, and come up with shapes that you never would have imagined.
Exactly, and I do that quite a bit. I'm always like, you'll see me rotate the model quite a bit. It's because I check the silhouette quite a bit to make sure it's something that I think is interesting. Because if I don't like it, chances are no one else is going to like it.
You could definitely tell when an artist really thought what they were making was cool. Like when they're really into it, it totally comes across.
Oh yeah. And now I'm thinking, like, I remember seeing the spider before, so this kind of gives me like a little spider vibe right there. That angle.
Totally does, yeah.
Again, it's just pulling from images I've seen in the past. I use Pinterest quite a bit to like gather reference. Okay, so let's see. So let's say this is kind of where I want to go with the sketch, because if I am going to be sketching, I'm not going to be creating a fully realized like 3D asset. It's just to kind of have an idea down. So what I'll do is maybe turn on perspective, and let's see. Just double this canvas really quick. This is the one thing I don't like about ZBrush, is having to like resize my canvas. I mean, it just gets so complicated. Like, see, this drives me crazy. Which there's like a much easier way. Okay, and
so now are you you're looking for a way to set it up, like for a good read on kind of a 2D image, or
exactly.
What are you doing just there?
So I'll send it to Photoshop. Wait for this guy. Okay. And I'll copy all of it and bring it into a new canvas.
See, I've got a few questions, if you don't mind me asking while you're getting set up. So someone's wanting to know, is it better to keep the join shapes to retopo before or after you finish the full mesh?
Sorry, one more time?
Yeah. I'm deciphering the question. Is it better to join the shapes or retopo before or after you finish the full mesh? So I think they're saying, like, should you weld all your shapes together or keep them separate?
It's up to you. Like I do a mix of both. It really is your preference. It depends on the scale of like the mesh,
Mm-hmm.
how many pieces there are. If you're doing like a human character, for instance, you have like a ton of stuff on them, which I never do. I just sculpt it all out just like this, and then I just send it and paint over it. Um, I try not to get technical at all. I personally don't like having a bunch of subtools. Like even these legs being separate drives me crazy, but you'll see why I do that. I just try to keep it as simple as possible so that way I can just paint on top of it later, and I'll show you
Okay.
why.
Yeah.
So these don't look that pretty. Like I feel like this doesn't look that pretty because it's very simple. Like I just wanted like something simple that had the shapes that I needed and the perspective I needed and the lighting that I needed. So sometimes I go to filter gallery and I'll use the cutout filter set to 4, 0, and 2. And I'll just hit OK. And then I'll get this kind of graphic result.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will paint on top of this.
Yeah. It's really cool because you started in 2D and then you elaborated in 3D, and now you've totally brought it back into being a 2D illustration.
Exactly, yeah. And then I can just sample the values that are already here and
Mm-hmm.
just draw on top.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
Someone's wanting to know.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say someone's wanting to know if you prefer to do, let's see, most shaping with modeling without adding topology. In other words, for the kind of workflow you're showing us right now, are you generally staying fairly low res with the mesh?
Yeah, I stay pretty low res. Like I try not to get too crazy because, I mean, as you try this on your own, you'll see that you lose a lot of information anyway. So there's kind of like no point. What matters the most are those first. Because I mean, look at this, right? I sculpted this, and yeah, if I sculpt in deeper, like I mentioned before, then that stuff will pop out. So remember how I said like one line is going to show up and the other isn't? This is exactly what happens, and it's the graphic read. So these values that you're seeing right now are the things that people are going to see first. So let's say I didn't have this filter on. That's exactly what you see first. Is you see the backside and these lines here as your primary areas of contrast because this has the most extreme contrast. So contrast is the difference between one thing and another. So black against white. So that's where your eye goes first, and so that's what you want to keep be mindful of as you're sculpting. So when it comes to detail and all that other stuff, all that matters is what reads. And so the way to practice that is going into Blender or Photoshop and applying. Actually, Finn taught me that. Finn McManus is throwing on that cutout filter and setting it to like 3 or 4, and whatever you see is what people will see in the design first.
Sort of like squinting your eyes until the values start to blend together.
Exactly. It's a way of if you haven't developed your eye for what to look for, then you could just use that filter as a way to kind of inform you of what people are going to see first, and then you could focus on those areas and refine them.
This is so fun just watching you do this now. All the information you got really quickly through sculpting and then just playing on top of it with those values. That's awesome.
So the reason why I sculpt legs like this is so I know what the values look like. Because I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Like if you're working in games or something like that, no one cares. But I get so particular about consistency. So what I'll do is I'll make sure my values match the values of the sculpted leg, so I can draw on something cooler.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you really are playing with this in the sense that, you know, hey, you took the time to sculpt those legs, but you're using them for how they can help you, but they're not so precious to you that you're like, well, I can't like totally take them away from the model and redesign them now. You're just letting your tools be tools.
Exactly, yeah. And I really don't care about the base mesh because I'm just redrawing all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, whoever is in the production, they'll tell you what what they like, what they don't like. But most often, even this is like overkill. But I just like doing it because it's fun and I really enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Is this what you're doing right now? Is this something that you would prepare to be able to show different iterations, say to like an art director or someone like that?
Absolutely, yeah. This is exactly what I would do. And this crudely too.
And what's cool is you don't have to keep redrawing this thing, right? Like you leave what needs to be left and then you add the new stuff that you want to add.
Exactly. And after I'm done painting this, we'll take a look at what it actually what it looks like in the 3D model, and then you'll be like, oh wow, you painted like a ton of stuff.
Right.
That's always funny. But again, like it's cool because you have all the information that you could sample from.
Mm-hmm. So will you sometimes, at this stage, get the direction that you need, and then the sort of the one that they like the most, then go back into ZBrush and add some more of that extra information to the model?
Sometimes they'll be like, hey, could you like refine this a little bit more?
Mm-hmm.
We like this one, we like this version, stuff like that. And I'll be able to go in, modify the model, and then at the end they're like, hey, can we have that model? Like, yeah, no problem. And then that modeler has like less work to do just because he took the time.
Totally. Or if they're like, well, we need an orthographic, like we want to see it from the front, the sides, the back, the top, you can very quickly give that to them.
Exactly, yeah. And I give them so many iterations of this back. So yeah, I mean, there's that. And again, just sampling these values.
Yeah, this is also a great example of like what you're doing for us right now is a great example of, using 3D or 2D for using the best tool for the job, right? So you're not doing all of this stage in 3D because you can just do it quicker in 2D. But doing your 3D helped you get to this much faster than if you'd started in 2D.
Exactly, yeah. And it's all about making sure you execute the idea. Because I mean, if you want to be an illustrator, where that's like you're doing like these elaborate paintings and all these details, stuff like that, and you really take time to render it out. But if you're doing concept art, I think one thing that really gets kind of confusing, especially for students, is like, oh, I have to be like a character modeler, pretty much. Like I have to model out all these little details and like take it as far as like Batali. And Batali has his system, and he's like a beast at it. But depending on the industry you're in, like games, for instance, it's like, no, we just want ideas. Give us as many ideas as you can. And sometimes I don't even take it to this level. This level's like a little overkill. But, like you may have a client that really responds to this very graphic look. So you just and you find like a nice, efficient way of doing it.
Yep.
So really quick, here's what the design looks like so far, right? And let's look at the model. It's just like compared to it, I mean, there's a lot more life in the painting of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's version 1, right? I could easily just like copy this, move it over, and do like a whole different kind of set of eyes because I kind of understand the perspective and stuff.
Right, and you haven't even gotten into color information yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not even there. Yeah.
Yeah. Give them all these wonky eyes.
Yeah, that's so fun. That's one of the things I love so much about design is, the different iterations. It's like you're coming up with your own multiverse. Like there's so many different possibilities for one thing.
Yeah. So again, the reason why I turned these, I wanted these legs to be able to turn off, is
Yeah.
because if this is going to be an egg-laying kind of creature, I kind of need to show how it's going to spit up these eggs, right?
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll do something like, let's see about that, because I'm imagining the legs, right, landing, and it's going to spit it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to hit this. I could send it to Photoshop. Okay, so that's one. Probably turn things off really quick. Send another version.
Let's see. Another question. Let's see. What someone just wants to know what brought you to Gnomon.
Like to do this demo?
No, I mean, I think for the time that you spent at Gnomon, I think you're teaching. You did did some study at Gnomon, right?
No, I at the time Gnomon wasn't a school. It was starting to become a school, I think.
I see.
But I was already in college at this terrible college. I won't drop the name, but
thank you.
I would have loved to have gone to Gnomon, but even then, you know, I'm not sure exactly what the curriculum was at Gnomon, how it was, how it went about teaching. But over the years, I've worked with a lot of Gnomon students. Yeah, so many friends that have graduated from it, and they're all super young, which is funny. But they have like this professional look to their portfolios. A lot of the artists come up with these portfolios that have a lot of, and you know, I mean, Gnomon does this sometimes, but I feel like more often than not, they're teaching students to focus on a particular thing in their portfolios. What I mean by that is some students come out with like a portfolio that has like an environment, a character, a texturing assignment, and they have a huge variety. But as someone that has the potential to hire you for a project, or even refer you to someone, like if Finn is looking for a character person to join the team, and he asks me my input, I'll look at portfolios, and especially student work, it's like, yeah, let's give students a chance. Or not students, but young artists. I mean, whoever can do the job, right? And if we meet someone that has a portfolio, and I'm not speaking for Finn, but one thing I notice is I do see that huge variety where it's just like, okay, here are a bunch of texture swatches. It's like, oh yeah, but you want to do character design, right? And they're like, yeah, but I also like modeling. It's like, okay, and I look at a portfolio and I don't know who they are. It's like, okay, do you really want to do character modeling? Then it should be character models throughout the whole thing. If you want to do character concept art, it should be character concept art throughout your whole thing. And that's been the most difficult thing, is finding someone that has a focused portfolio. And the people that I've met that are from Gnomon usually tend to have that thing where it's like they have a very focused portfolio.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not all the time that I see that. Like I still see, you know, the traditional portfolio, but more often than not, I do see that from Gnomon where it's very focused, and that's why they get hired, and I work with them.
Yeah, I'll actually be after we're finished with you today, I'll be talking a little bit about that afterwards. That is, we actually do the best of both worlds at Gnomon. Is you learn the entire pipeline so that you have a strong foundation, and then you get to focus on something. And then our placement team, they'll actually coach you into having a more focused portfolio depending on what you're going after. So I think that's one of the things that's unique, like you were saying, is the reason why Gnomon does have younger artists that are launching into the workforce as junior artists, but their portfolios can tend to be very refined because that's been a part of the education, you know, that they've been coached in how to set up the sort of portfolio that art directors are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great. I've definitely been a part of things where I've seen that students don't get that, because I mean, students are, I mean, they're students, right? So they're not going to exactly have that experience to know those things. And if they can partner with actual industry professionals, which Gnomon does have, and it's very key. It's very key to have that, because they're up to date on what the needs of the industry are. And
yeah,
a lot of the students that you're going to be working with end up being in the industry themselves, so it's good to have those relationships. Yeah, and you know, it'll lead you on the right direction for your career path.
Oh yeah, 100%. Someone's wanting to know if you like to name your creature designs, and if you do, what would you call this beautiful child?
Oh man, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyone else? I don't know if anyone has a recommendation. I'm so bad. I'll call this. Usually, what I tend to name creatures is number 1 or number 2, number 3.
Right, because you got so many different iterations. Yeah.
And then that always ends up biting me in the butt, just because I'll come back and I'm like, wait, which one are you?
Right.
And I'll forget that I would have done a design, and then later on I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that. I'm like, definitely, totally forgot.
Or you could just call him Byron.
Byron.
You know, just personify him. Maybe he's actually a really nice guy. He's just doing his job.
Just spin up eggs.
That's what he does. It's his job. And he goes home to his family.
Yeah.
Or her family.
Or hers, yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is cool. This is where I think it gets really fun, right? You already have this neat design, but then you just get to go nuts, right? And come up with so many different, you know, what if it has this? What if it does that?
Yeah. You know, and then I'll like leave notes, spits up egg or whatever. And I'll do like a little profile view of it, maybe. But what's great is I have these like values to sample from. And I have to like guess with all that stuff. I'll try to make this clear. I'll probably like color this or something like that.
Draw the director's eye to it a little bit more.
Exactly, just to show what the focus is of this. Color the egg sac or whatever.
Someone's wanting to know, this is a great question. How do you try not to create a creature that has already been created? In other words, how do you come up with original ideas?
So, I mean, everything's going to be, I mean, at this point, everything is kind of like, even if it's not intentional, everything is sort of been done, but not in the same context, not the same textures, not the same style. So like even this creature, there's so many creatures that spit up eggs. But what's great about art is you bring an artistic voice to this game. Like there is no one like you. And so I think it's really important. I try to really encourage anyone that's trying to do content art as a career is it doesn't matter what ArtStation has to say about your piece. It doesn't matter what Instagram has to say about your piece. If you get 3 likes, someone like myself or anyone that's looking to hire someone, if we see your idea and maybe it's not the most beautiful.
Oh, it looks like we might have lost Luis there for a second. We'll give him a moment to see if he can come back. It's going to check in with our producer to see if Luis is still with us. Bear with us for a second, guys. We're going to get this fixed. All right. So while we wait for he might be having to reboot his machine or something like that. But hey, you know what? We've all been doing this for the past year, right? Like, I mean, frozen faces and robot voices on Zoom have become a normal part of our lives. So these are really common challenges. So we're going to wait for Luis to take care of whatever he needs to take care of to join us. But yeah, we've been discussing some really cool stuff. I think what I'd like to do is give you just a little bit of practical information from what you've seen. If you are new to digital sculpting and what Luis has been doing today is interesting to you, there are a lot of different ways that you can get started. In fact, you can download a smaller, more kind of beginner's version of ZBrush, what Luis was using for free.
Sorry, blue screen.
No worries.
Blue screen of death.
No, it's all good, man.
I'm confident I lost everything.
Oh no.
And that is the life of a. So if you want to know, if you think Luis is really good, it's because that happens quite a bit.
yeah. If you want to get better, just let your computer crash and have to make it again quicker.
And what's great about Photoshop is the little recovery system it has.
Mm-hmm.
So I recovered at least part of it.
Cool.
So, wait, I have to share my screen, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and
I was talking and I was like, blue screen. I was like, okay, so you can't hear anything I'm saying now.
Oh no. Yeah, no, I was keeping everybody company, saying how this is really normal these days. We're all used to getting frozen.
I've been having a lot of issues, so I actually ordered a new machine that's coming.
Oh wow!
I just got so tired of this, but
you didn't lose too much.
I lost the new thing I was working, but I mean that's not a big deal.
Well, and the cool thing is this is recorded, right? People will be able to go back and see that other stuff that you did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a quick thing, designing creatures that are kind of like new. No one has the same voice as you do. So again, it doesn't matter what how many likes you get on Instagram or ArtStation or anything like that. And there's constantly a new thing with social media. There's always a new thing, a new kind of fad that's going on, and that stuff doesn't matter if you're creating content that you really like in your own style. Even if you're borrowing from like 10 different artists that you really admire, as long as you're executing it in a way that makes you happy and you're focusing on design first, then making it pretty. That's what matters the most, because that's how cool games and cool content is really created. And I'm sure you've seen tons of movies where it's just like, okay, you're just trying to do what this company did. You're just trying.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, and it looks like that, and it's not fun.
For sure. Yeah, no, and you always tend to see that thing where like there'll be like the one original idea that will come out, and then you'll see like later that year or the next year, like 3 different copycats that are like, we'll just use the same designs, but put it on a slightly different alien planet or something like that.
Exactly. And sometimes that's the job. Sometimes that's exactly what you're hired for. It's because they want you to replicate what's been seen before, so it may not. So even if you see some of your favorite artists doing stuff that has been done a million times, it's probably what they were paid to do exactly that. So it's that there's definitely like a spectrum for that stuff.
For sure. Yeah, one of the things I like that Ian McCaig talks about is he talks about just that thing, like where the director comes and says, I want you to make something that looks just like this. And it's like, oh no, this isn't going to be fun or creative. And he just like, maybe it's an Ian McCaig thing, but he has this way of like hijacking it in his brain and like nerding out on it and turning it into something new in his head. But then executing what it is the director's looking for at the same time. But yeah, I think that's also a superpower.
So I mean, this is pretty much how I work a lot of the time.
Yeah, and this is hugely useful. I think one of the things that's been really cool about because we've been doing this with a few different artists now, of like, hey, you do both 2D and 3D, and how do those two interrelate for you in your process? And each artist has a little bit of a different approach, and I think each different approach is uniquely inspiring. So like even just really quickly, and then what you did with that filter in Photoshop to like even res it down to just a few different values, and then painting on top, like I'm super excited about that. I know I'm going to be spending some time this weekend doing exactly that. That's really fun. I think, let's see, I'll help address a couple of other questions that have come in. Let's see. Oh, someone wants to know if there's it's kind of a geek question. Is there anything that you, is there a design or a type of project that you haven't gotten to do yet that you would love to do?
There is. I've always really wanted to work on a small film. like a small creature film, like even if it's kind of campy, I don't think I care. Like Quiet Place was the closest, but I didn't design the Quiet Place creature. I was just like one of many, of course, which is usually the case. But I would like to be a part of a project where I am like the person that's like kind of like in charge of that stuff. And I just think it would be fun. I mean, I still want to work with a lot of artists, but it'd be nice to have like a bit more input and
Sure.
things that aren't on such a giant scale. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun.
And that is where smaller projects are really cool, because people are generally having to wear more than one hat.
Yeah.
And, a designer can have a little bit more influence on art direction for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, I've been lucky in my career. And for those of you that are interested in doing this kind of work, the reason why I do all of these techniques that I showed you is because I always had trouble with perspective and understanding perspective. And like, I could never draw like a creature, great perspective. I'd kind of do this kind of thing where I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it would take me hours to kind of get it to look decent. I mean, I wouldn't do it that badly, but yeah, it would just take me so much time. And, spending so much time in 3D when I was at ILM, and then going over to games for a little while, I'm just like, hey, the whole filter thing was something I learned at ILM, and you can see it like in their Mandalorian art where they use like poster edges.
Mm-hmm.
But after Finn kind of showed me like this thing with cutout just to check like if things are reading, because he was showing me that for environment work. I started doing it to the characters, and I was just like, that looks kind of cool. So I just started drawing on top of it, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna send that. And then and then it just became like awesome because I can still draw and I can still paint and I can still sculpt, which like makes me really happy. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great, I think what you're providing is a great example of how, an artist could just say, well, I don't know how to do XYZ, so I'll just depend on 3D to accomplish that for me. I'll depend on some software, as opposed to, hey, what if I use this tool to help me grow in this area? And then you develop this whole unique kind of an approach to something that you keep evolving and building as you go. Because it's not that you don't understand perspective. You know what you're looking for. And I think that's the difference.
If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to get as far as ahead as I am with this.
Totally. Absolutely.
I still practice I still practice when I can the fundamentals of like drawing and painting, just because the more you practice those fundamentals, as like boring and like much of a chore as they are, you kind of realize how easy it is to finish everything else after you've practiced it.
Totally.
Yeah,
and you got to stay sharp. And art isn't supposed to be easy, but it can still be fun. And I think that's the thing. Everybody just assumes that, well, if you have talent, then it comes easily to you, and those are the ones that are employable. When a lot of times I find that talent always helps, but what makes an artist employable is so much more than that, in terms of what you've been able to study and work hard at. This has been super cool, Luis. Is there any I always like to ask, as we're finishing up, are there any parting words or thoughts that you'd like to share for any aspiring artists out there that are maybe seeing what you're doing and saying, wow, this is the thing, I want to do this is what I want to do for a living?
I always say be mindful of insecurities. So if it's that you are having trouble starting with the 3D, for instance, and you're thinking it may not be for you, but you are interested, there's really nothing wrong in seeing how I approach things and how others approach things, and just have like really small goals. And that's what I did when I first started sculpting in ZBrush. I did give up I learned the UI, but then I gave up for like months, and then I started working on ILM, and then eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to approach this to building a toy, pretty much, where it's like, I'm just going to do the head today. I'm just going to do the face, and that's it. That's all I have to do. And I would do that, and I would kind of feel good about it. And then the next day it's like, okay, I'm going to work on just the torso. That's all I'm going to do. And I would do that. And then next day would be the arm, and then I'd be able to mirror the arm, and then the leg. And then I did that so many times that it got to the point where I just kind of knew exactly what to do for everything. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what to do. I've done this enough times. But in the beginning, it was difficult, but it stopped being difficult because I set those small goals. And if you set a small goal and you feel stressed out, it's not small enough. And it doesn't matter how small it is. Just maybe today you're just going to watch like a little video about how to do something and try it out. Or maybe you'll try it out the next day. It doesn't matter what you do. Just give yourself a chance, because you'll be making more progress doing that instead of just beating yourself up. Which is which is the thing, because art is challenging. It's not easy. And just knowing that, and knowing you are going to have those ups and downs, and just be prepared for that. Hey, I feel shitty. I don't want to do this. And it's like, okay, that's normal. That's expected.
Right.
Make a smaller goal. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that we get so excited about learning a thing, we think that we're in a race.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, sometimes you actually have to slow down to go faster later. So that's super helpful advice. And I meet a lot of younger artists, and there is a lot of stress out there.
Yeah.
And we are so self-critical as artists. It's important to celebrate your steps and your accomplishments along the way.
Yeah. And likes don't mean anything. No one has to see what you're doing. And if you get 1,000, that's great. If that's a lot. If you get 2, that's a lot too. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yep. And you bring up such a good point, Luis, is that I think in an age of social media, we've forgotten sometimes what it is to make something for ourselves. We're so pre-programmed to make something for an audience, where, like you said earlier, the first person you should be getting stoked about this is you. Exactly.
And one of my favorite rappers is J. Cole, and he has this song called False Prophets. And in that, he does talk about it, where he's just like, he talks about people he sees, that he respects, that are doing this, fitting this like current craving that social media has, and himself. And this is something that I think other professionals go through too, is like feeding this monster of Instagram and trying to become this false prophet of creating a certain style or a certain look, but it doesn't actually make you happy. The happiest that you were is when you were making stuff just to make stuff because it made you happy.
Yeah.
And getting back in touch with that is so important. And I think you all, just by watching these videos that Gnomon does, is you getting in touch with that. It really is, because you didn't have to watch, right? So yeah, you're already making good steps.
Awesome. Well, I think that's perfect. That's a perfect statement for us to conclude on. And Luis, I just want to say thanks again so much for giving some time today to join us on the stream, to not just make something cool, but to really share, I think, out of the overflow of who you are as an artist. Always super helpful.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to having you back again in the future, man. But yeah, stay safe as well.
You too, my friend.
Yeah, and keep being creative and doing amazing stuff. I look forward to our next chance to meet.
Cool, same here, yeah.
All right. So as we bid Luis farewell, I'm going to transition really quickly to, for those of you who'd like to stick around, if you're interested in Gnomon, if you're interested in either picking up some of these skills through individual classes, or you're interested in building a career in working with 3D as an artist, I'd like to share with you briefly about Gnomon and how we are training artists for that. So I'm just going to get my screen share set up here and put it up on the screen. There we go. Okay, so we are ready to go. And, the first thing I'll say about Gnomon is just how we got started. Gnomon started over 20 years ago, back in 1997. A industry artist by the name of Alex Alvarez started Gnomon as a place where it's like one digital lab where industry artists could come and learn about creating digital 3D for films, games, and so forth. There was a huge demand for that kind of art in the industry, and there were few artists that knew how to accomplish it. So when Alex started up Gnomon as a place where industry artists could do that, we very rapidly exploded into becoming a full-blown school. Where not only artists from the industry were coming over, but now just people that are looking for a career in this area were coming in to train. So over the years, we've won some great awards. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these represent winning School of the Year internationally several times, as well as ranking #1 in the US for VFX games and animation, which is pretty much everything that we teach. So all of that backstory, just to give you an idea that Gnomon's been around for a long time, and we're very good at what we do. And because of that, our graduates have gone on to work on some amazing projects. So every one of these posters represents a project that a Gnomon alumni contributed to. And these are many of the studios out there that you might be familiar with who are regularly hiring students, who are hiring graduates from Gnomon. You'll see up at the top there, 97% industry placement. In 2019, as well as in 2020, we have had a placement rate well up into the 90th percentile. And what that means for us, the way that we define placement as a school, is that is the percentage of our graduates from our full-time programs who have found work in the industry doing what they trained to do at Gnomon within just 6 months of finishing the program, and in a lot of cases much sooner than 6 months. So again, this right here represents why Gnomon exists. We do not just want to teach you some cool skills and then let you figure out how to turn into a career. We are all about teaching artists the skills, but also preparing artists and giving the skill sets that they need to go work in a studio after they finish the program. We're very proud of that, and it's intrinsic to our mission. So what exactly is it that I'm talking about? What is Gnomon's focus? We are a hyper-focused, specialized art school, and what we teach in a nutshell is called digital production. Now, this is going to be a term that includes the following types of skill sets. These are things like computer-based visual effects, character and creature design, which we're seeing some creature design here with Luis today. Digital sculpting, again, demonstrated beautifully by Luis on the stream today. Character and creature animation, environment design, lighting and rendering, matte painting and compositing, game asset creation, game engines, production workflows, and world building. Now, maybe you're familiar with some of these terms. Maybe some of these are new concepts to you, but every one of these skills translates into the following careers. So this is to give you an idea that when we talk about careers in the entertainment industry of artists, there are many different kinds of career paths that cater to different types of artists, people who are wired differently. So there is a lot of room and a lot of demand in the industry for artists. So I would like to just highlight just 4 of these many different career paths to give you an idea of that variety. So the first one that we're going to look at is a character artist. Now, a character artist does exactly what the name implies. They are responsible for creating that 3D character or creature in this case that is going to be who the audience meets or what the audience sees on screen in a film or in a game that they're playing. This artist is using ZBrush, which Luis was using earlier on the stream today. And they're doing very much the same type of thing that Luis was doing. But instead of stopping just at the design phase, this artist is actually able to utilize this tool to bring their creature to a fully realized and realistic finish, and then to learn how to then take that sculpt and prepare it for use in a film, in animation, or use in a game, or something like that. That's the pipeline that we're teaching at Gnomon. So a character or creature artist is a great position for someone who likes to draw a lot of characters and creatures. I think a lot of artists that are a little bit more traditionally leaning, maybe they're doing a lot of figurative studies, figure drawing, that kind of stuff, are going to find that this kind of a role is going to be very rewarding to build a career with. Next up are effects artists. Now, an effects artist is, I like to affectionately say effects artists essentially sit in front of their computers and blow up stuff all day. That's an oversimplification, but as you can see here, effects artists are responsible for incredibly visual and stunning cinematics like this. And this is a form of animation that is very different than, say, a character animation. When you animate a character, you can go in and individually move arms and fingers and facial muscles by hand, but a effects artist has to move so many different pieces at once. Even just the individual droplets of water in that scene that we just saw, it's way too many moving pieces to animate it by hand. So instead, what they're doing is they're using specialized software that actually drives physics simulations. So software that simulates, for example, solving the problem of if this, mortar shell explodes inside this room, what's going to happen? How's everything going to move? How is the smoke going to move? So they're answering those questions and solving those problems creatively because the director has said, this is the cool thing I want to have happen. And so they actually make it real. So this is a great role for, artists who want to make scenes like this, but also are very inquisitive, almost like scientists, looking at the world around them and creatively imagining how and why something happens and how they can recreate that as an artist in a situation like this. Next up are compositors. Now, a compositor makes a scene like this out of just essentially starting with green screen footage and adding in different animated and video and 3D components. So they create a scene like this, which is an establishing shot for film. And for example, next up, you'll see tennis courts in the background are 3D models. The tennis players are actors filmed in front of green screens. In the foreground here, we've got 3D model buildings and props, lighting, then texturing and colors put on them, as well as a different additional actors. A final lighting pass is done, and you wind up with a scene like this. And this is, we see this all the time in television and film. And this is because a shot like this is the way that the director is able to tell us, the audience, hey, this is the location now that the story is taking place. Maybe we've changed to a new place and they need to show a shot like that. Now, in the past, where a director has had to hire a film crew, scout out real world locations, and hire actors and get permits and insurance to film at that place, now they can save a lot of time and money and go to an effects studio and say, hey, here are the shots that I need. And I need your digital artists, 3D artists, and your animators, so forth, to make all the different pieces that need to be woven together. But the compositor is the person almost at the end of the pipeline who puts it all together and makes it completely believable and realistic looking. And we're probably seeing shots like this all the time in television and film, not even knowing that so many different components had to be put together to make it feel like a real place. And lastly, I'd like to look at previs artists. These are artists that create something called a pre-visualization of a film. And that's just a fancy term for basically they're making a moving storyboard. So storyboards traditionally have been, just 2D images drawn in sequence to explain how the camera is going to move through a scene, what's happening to the characters and, the action that's taking place. Well, films have become increasingly and increasingly complex. Say, for instance, like World War Z, which is what we're seeing the pre-visualization for. So you need artists that can work in 3D and animate 3D, but are doing a more simplified version of those things. And they're telling a story by animating the models and then deciding how the camera is going to move through the scene. So they're basically making a mini movie. These are artists that get to work very closely with the director and the cinematographer, and they're more focused on telling the big picture story than they are, hyper detailing Brad Pitt's face for the scene or something like that. So if you are a storyteller, you're always thinking of the big picture, you're kind of like a director, maybe trapped in an animator's body, this is a perfect position for you. And there's a high demand for this role in digital production. So with just a few of these roles in mind and how different they are from each other, let's talk about how Gnomon, as one school, is training artists for these many different kinds of careers. So academically, here's a bird's eye perspective on our academic offerings. First up, we've got a 4-year full-time Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in digital production at Gnomon. Just to the right of it, you'll see also we have something called a certificate program. This is a little bit more intensive than our bachelor's degree program. It's just 2 years long, and it's a little bit more at the level or akin to, say, master's degree level type of training. On the bottom row, you'll see we have a foundation in art and design, which is simply a portfolio building course that you can take at Gnomon. No portfolio submission is required. This is something you can speak with our advisors about and sign up for. And lastly, we have 10-week individual courses available at Gnomon as well. And this is an opportunity for you as an adult student to take an individual class and, say, pick up a ZBrush class and take that on an evening or on a weekend, in addition to maybe other studies that you're doing, or if you're a working artist and you want to learn new skills, this is a great option for you. So let's take a closer look at these. So our Bachelor of Fine Arts degree is our primary, it's our main academic offering at Gnomon. And this is a fully accredited, full-time 4-year program. Accreditation means that financial aid is going to be available. A lot of the usual suspects, for example, in the state of California, things like Cal Grants and so forth, that you can apply for. And it's going to be on our campus. So we have been running our Bachelor of Fine Arts program online on a custom-built online platform we had made for us years ago. We've been able to do that in quarantine, but as we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we're very excited about when we will have the opportunity to open up campus and bring this program back fully on our campus. Now, we have 2 optional concentrations in the BFA program. So as you are in the program, you're learning the digital production pipeline. You're getting what we call a 3D generalist skill set. You're building a broad foundation and learning all of the pipeline. But you also get to potentially choose a concentration, say, for example, in game art, which means you're going to be learning how to do that pipeline, but specifically for game engines. Additionally, we have a brand new concentration in VFX, which allows you to take some of the VFX classes that were formerly only available in our 2-year certificate program, gives access to BFA students to take some of those classes as well, so that they can concentrate more on preparing to be a VFX artist after the program. And you see below here that, as I mentioned, when you're in the 4-year program at Gnomon, we teach you the entire pipeline. You learn it all. And the reason why that's important is it gives you a very strong foundation as a 3D artist to go into a studio and work effectively with the team at that studio. That 3D generalist education is the reason why graduates from Gnomon are sought after by art directors, just like Luis was talking about earlier. It's the reason why they are highly capable artists coming into, say, for example, their first position as a junior artist. Now, you're learning the whole pipeline, but you have this concentrations available. Plus, in your last year, your last 4 terms at Gnomon, you also get to pick out 4 electives, which allows you to then take that broad foundation and build some particular skills on top of it with an area that you might be passionate about, whether that's you want to be an animator or, say, a character artist or a modeling and texturing artist, and so forth. So this really is a way for you to get that broad training that the industry is looking for, but still be able to build up specific skills in an area that you're passionate about. You can apply for the bachelor's program 4 times out of the year. We have a rolling admission, so it's not just the fall, but also the spring and the summer and the winter as well. And this is a great option for someone who's looking for a degree and wants to build that robust level of experience to get ready to go and start a career in digital production. All right, next up is our 2-year certificate program. Now, I mentioned that this is a little bit more like master's level type of study. It's also fully accredited full-time on our campus, but it's going to have a higher course load and a more intensive study over the course of just 2 years. So this is ideal for someone who, say, already has a degree from another school and wants to come and learn these specific skills at Gnomon in addition to the experience they have. Or maybe you already have a certain level of experience in art and you want to come to Gnomon to launch a very specific career towards digital production. You get to choose, you build that broad foundation again in this program, and you get to choose from 5 areas of study, ranging from things like modeling and texturing, animation, games, and so forth. So you get to also, get in there and pick that area that you really want to launch into and build on top of your broad 3D foundation that you've learned at Gnomon. So this is a great program, as I said, for someone who is not necessarily looking for a degree. They may already have a degree, or they have a certain level of experience in art, and they really want to launch from Gnomon into the industry. So next up, I'll highlight our foundation in art design. We recognize that at Gnomon, we are a challenging school to get into. We have certain requirements that we are looking for in our portfolios, and our admissions advisors are ready to coach you and help you to know what that is before you apply. And sometimes artists may not have had the opportunity to learn each of those areas. And so we have a foundation course that is set up for you to be able to get in and build your portfolio at Gnomon. So you'd be taking classes like figure drawing, anatomy for artists, perspective, color and light, and then you'll get into some great design classes like character and creature design, vehicle and mech design, and so forth. This is an ideal bridge often for going straight from high school into the full-time program at Gnomon, because not every high school student or graduate has had the opportunity to study each of those foundational skills, or maybe they haven't put together a portfolio yet. So if you go into the foundation, you don't have to stay in it for the entire year. It's there for you to pick up the classes that you need to build up the kind of portfolio that you're going to need to apply. And you can do that under the advisement of our admissions advisors. And if you finish the foundation with a GPA of about 3.2 or higher, you also automatically get a $500 scholarship towards our bachelor's program. And about half of the classes that are offered in the foundation in art design are also transferable into the BFA. So not only is it a great bridge, but it's also a great Kickstarter. You're already starting to take care of some things and learn some things that you might already have to learn in the BFA once you're admitted. So again, you still got to build up that portfolio. You still have to apply yourself and build up the kind of work that you're going to need to apply to the full-time program and get admitted. But the foundation is a great way to do that. Lastly, we have individual classes. These are 3-hour classes that meet once a week over the course of 10 weeks. So an accumulative 30 hours of class time. These are the same instructors and the same classes that are a part of our full-time programs. And we have well over 70 of them that you can choose from in a wide variety of skill sets. So if you were seeing what Luis was doing today and you want to take a class to learn ZBrush, that is available. And you can keep taking additional classes to build skills in digital sculpting or another area of your interest that you want to come to Gnomon and learn. Let's say, for example, that you are a community college student who might be interested in either just picking up some extra skills on the side or even eventually transferring into Gnomon. You can pick up an individual class during a semester or during a quarter that you're doing in the evening or on the weekend in addition to your studies that you're already doing. So this presents some really great and flexible options. And just for clarity's sake, it's important that you know that our 2 full-time programs are what a portfolio submission is required to apply to, but the foundation in art design, as well as individual classes, no portfolio is needed. This is something you can just speak with admissions about and sign up for. So those are our 4 offerings. And I'd like to wrap up today by talking about our admissions process, and namely that first most important conversation that you need to have with one of our advisors. And this is our team right here. They are all great artists and super nice people. And what they're interested in doing is actually helping you to get ready to apply. So you don't want to wait to talk to one of our advisors until the moment that you're ready to apply. You can talk to them as soon as you want in your process. They will find out, what your goals are, why you're interested in Gnomon, and helping you to know how Gnomon could be the best fit for you. And then they'll start coaching you in your artwork and helping you put together the portfolio that you're going to need to apply. So guys, this is essentially you're hearing from the source what Gnomon is looking for, and they're looking over your artwork and helping you to refine your portfolio before you apply to the program. So I can't stress enough, that's very different than a lot of other art schools. And this is why our advisors are the very first people you want to speak with if you're interested in Gnomon. My colleague Xander, who's in the chat today, he's right up here on the screen. He's one of our advisors, and he can provide you with a link that will allow you to reach out and say, hey, I'd love for an admissions advisor to contact me. I have some questions that I want to talk about regarding Gnomon. I'm interested in some portfolio coaching, etc. So definitely follow up that link and pay close attention for that email that'll come into you. So after that, just want to mention, we have an amazing campus at Gnomon, and I think as we wrap up today, as we close out, we'll show our campus reel after I've finished here, so you can get a taste of what this unique place is like. But I'll just set it up by saying we are actually located on a production lot in Hollywood. And it's really cool. It's more like being in a studio than it is going to a school. It's a very inspiring environment, but it's also a very curated environment to give our students the experience of being in a studio, working with the type of equipment they would work with in a studio at the pace that they'd be working in a studio, so that they already are starting to build up those necessary soft skills. Our Hollywood location is also very strategic. It allows us to make sure that every instructor at Gnomon is a currently working industry artist. That means that when you're in the classroom with an instructor at Gnomon, they've come into the classroom from their day job, working in a studio, teaching you the exact same pipeline and skills that they're using on a daily basis in the industry. It also helps us with student placement. Our placement team is always actively building strong relationships with studios, their recruiters, their art directors, helping to point our students towards and coach them towards possible places of employment after graduation. In fact, we have brought over 50 studios to the Gnomon campus, and we do this 4 times a year. Studios will send their recruiters to just our campus to just look at Gnomon artwork by our students. And a lot of times during those employer preview days, a conversation between an artist and a recruiter from a studio can turn into a job interview on the spot. So we're very serious about that, and our location helps us to do that all the better. So with that, guys, I want to invite you to keep tuning in to future live streams, and eventually, as we're able to open up campus, some of the live events that we do on our campus. Every event at Gnomon is free to the public, whether that is, for example, events like these. So hearing from the entire visual development team at Marvel about how they're making the films that they're making, or perhaps we're going to be, one of our regular gallery shows that we do, showing art from one of your favorite films or one of your favorite games. And we usually throw a big party when we do that. We make it an event, and the artists that we're featuring come out. So it's a chance for you to meet the industry, to meet the artists behind the artwork that you love, and to understand what the state of the industry is like and who these people are who are working on these projects. And it allows us to help our students to be able to rub shoulders with these people and to have a strong connection with the industry while they're training for it. So please come back to the stream. Please pay attention as we open up campus eventually. And we'd love to have you come out to one of these events. Lastly, I and our recruitment team at Gnomon, we are actively engaging classrooms virtually. So if you're an educator, or if you are a student in a class, an art class at a community college or high school, and you'd love for Gnomon to come and visit you and do a live interactive drawing session and share information about Gnomon with you and answer questions, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to accommodate that. So with that, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to stick around. Thanks for tuning into our great conversation we had with Luis. And if you're interested in Gnomon, if you're interested in this world of entertainment industry for artists, I encourage you to reach out to our advisors and get that conversation going. Once again, my name is Adam Hartel. I want to give thanks to Luis Carrasco again for joining us today, as well as my colleague Miranda Harrington, who has been taking care of production of the stream today. Stay safe, everybody. Stay creative, and I look forward to seeing you back here again in the near future. Bye-bye.